Hello, welcome to the channel. The warbands are out now, so it's kind of that strange time where the meta's a bit of a mess, I guess, where people are just playing around with all the new stuff. I've been the same, playing around with all sorts of different decks, and this week I'm going to be highlighting three decks that I've kind of put together. Starting off with my first Krushas deck. And here we are. This is the deck. So I've kind of messed about. I've had a couple of games with the orcs, and I've put some cards in, put some cards out. Just kind of tweaked a little bit, but This is kind of where I'm at the moment with them. The kind of style of play I'm going for. It's a little bit flexy. But predominantly it is involving getting it up in the grill of my opponents and killing stuff and being as disruptive as possible. And I think you can probably tell that by looking at this. What I like about this deck off the start is look how many orc icons there are in there. I'm a big fan of the factions expansions being released with lots of really good faction cards. I like the fact that all of the Season 3 factions have their own kind of flavour and style, and I think that's just going to push on even more into Season 4, and I think the game will be a lot better for it. So let's talk about those objectives. The first one, like I said, I'm going to be trying to kill stuff. So it's straight up with Strong Start. We all know what that is. Score immediately if the first fighter taken out of action in this round is an enemy fighter. And then the next one, Got It Boss. Score immediately after an activation if your warband holds one or more objectives in enemy territory. I'm going to be pushing forward. I'm going to be in around that opposition half, so it kind of makes sense to have that in there, I think, because it'd be quite easy to score, particularly with the boss's push as well. This nicely leads on to Now What, the Orc card where you score immediately if after an activation if your warband holds two or more objectives. Again, I'm going to be playing quite aggressively. There is another way of scoring this other than physically holding an objective, which I'll come to later. So I think this card works quite nicely with that. Auric Cunning. Score immediately when you play your third or subsequent Gambit in this round. Ploy Master for the Beastgrave generation. Really pretty easy to score, really. You'd be really unlucky not to score this if it was in your hand. And I'm a kind of big fan of this card, particularly how it ties in with the card draw mechanics that I've got in the deck. Hidden Purpose, carbon copy of Now What. This is one of the cards that I'm still undecided on, wondering whether or not there's a better surge in there, but I don't usually like putting stuff in that just does exactly the same thing, but this seems quite an easy to score surge. Show of Force. Score if three or more friendly fighters are in enemy territory, or one of your friendly fighters has three or more upgrades. I've scored this in every game that I've played with the Orcs so far, and it has been either or. If I have it in my hand first thing, it's pretty easy to score it. And then if you have it sort of end game, you tend to be piling on the upgrades onto one Orc. So it's such a strong card and such a really good card for the Orcs. And then the end phase cards, I'm going to talk about two at the same time. Digging Deep and To the End. I think everyone else is putting these cards in all of their decks now. Card draw is such a big thing now because of Frenzied Search, because of Quick Search, because of Unnatural Truce. Because of how easy some of the surges are to score. If you're man trappers, you have that upgrade where you're able to draw cards as well. I think Digging Deep and To the End are both going to get restricted. To the End may even get banned, I think. I think we're going to have another FAR soon, maybe just before, or maybe just after the multiplayer gets released, because there's a lot of cards in that as well. But I think the card draw mechanics days are possibly done. I think a lot of people play it because it's easy. It is easy, but it does take a chunk of that kind of interaction, of warband interaction, out of the game. But while it is in there and it is easy to score, it's in my deck. Next up is Good Day's Work. I really like this card, particularly if you're going to be playing quite aggressively. Score this in an end phase if there are more enemy fighters out of action than surviving enemy fighters. Like I said, it's really good if you're playing offensively. Why wouldn't you with Krushas? And if you are playing offensively, you're probably going to kill more than half of your opponent, even if you're up against it. I'm pretty certain I've scored this in every game that I've played, bar one, and I got an absolute whooping in that one. But it's fluffy. It fits what I'm trying to do. In their element, this is another card I'm not too sure on. I was thinking of having Solid Gains in there instead, but score this in an end phase if each surviving friendly fighter is inspired, or even fired up, maybe. But yeah, I think this might be quite a tough card to score. Yeah, I'm undecided on this one still, but I've scored it in like trial games, so there's no reason for me to take it out, but it does add to the potential of having to kind of brick your opening hand, because it's not a card you want in your opening hand at all. Proper Rumble, score this in an end phase if 4 or more fighters are out of action and or have wound tokens. Yeah, it doesn't have to be your fighters, it doesn't have to be the opponents, it's in total. A really good card to take, and I'm confident that I can score that quite a lot. And then the final one we've not talked about, the Avatar has risen. Lots of people are playing around with these Urgrok upgrades to see who's the best kind of people to put it on, and I think the Orcs have such a good there's so many good reasons for the Orcs to be using this in particular. You got 3 people with 5 wounds for a start. Everything, all of the abilities that the Claws, Mandibles, and Sting have are really good for the Orcs. So extra damage, ensnare, and heal, which is really, really good for the Orcs. Any way of slowing down, killing them, massive thumbs up for me. Now, in all the games that I've played, I've not scored this yet because of that. Because I've had to brick it because it's just been in the opening hand. Even though it does say score this in an end phase, if you've got it in your opening hand and you don't have any surges with it as well, you're not going to score it probably. But it's in there. It's not, because of how offensive you are, it's not dependent on scoring this. But this is a score more card in my eyes. But they're my objectives. Let us know what you think about those. What would you change? I feel with the style of play that I'm going for, like quite aggressive, quite killy, also have that kind of objective grabbing to fall back on. I don't need to rely too much on the objectives, as you'll be able to see with my Gambits. At one point I could score those now what and Hidden Purpose by only physically holding 1, which makes those quite strong cards. But moving on to the Gambits now. The majority of these, again, Orc faction cards, which is great. You'll be able to see why I've picked these particular ones. So first of all, Brawling. This is one of the ones where you get to place a war counter on someone who is standing next to an opponent. This is one of the ones that I'm not too sure on. I may change this one in the future. But the fact that you can put a war token down is pretty good. So particularly if someone does an attack and fluffs it, and that person hasn't moved or charged yet, give them a war token. Next up, Brutal Attack. It simply adds a dice, but also adds a war token after the attack action. Adding dice. I mean, I've been playing Godsworn all summer, so adding dice has been essential to my gameplay. So maybe that's still in there. I think adding dice is still good. You know, if you're adding dice to the boss at the start, he might need it to help shove through some damage. So I think it's a good card, particularly as it gives the attacker a war token. Brutal Cunning. Free attack after a move. Really strong card, particularly if paired with Cunning Brutality. But it's such a strong card, you can just send someone in amongst it. They make a move, and then they've made an attack, hopefully killing someone, which frees them up to make another attack if possible. Brutal Reprisal, bit like Rebound really, I guess, but there's not many things out there that can one-shot an orc. Just saying. So, obviously it doesn't work every time, but if you're able to play this and you're able to get a good attack in, it's a free attack and a free glory not in your turn if that attack comes off. Obviously you don't get the war token from it, but I really like this card. I think this is one that a lot of people are possibly going to disagree on taking, because maybe we're going to be in a position where, because of this card, people will not attack an orc unless they know that they can potentially kill it. But I think for the time being, because there's not that many things that can one-shot an orc without too much kind of upgrade or ploy interference. So I think at the moment this is a must-take card. Eager Advance. This is just a push card, but you get to add a war counter. So I've not got really much room for pushes. So I'm only going to, if you're going to take one push card this summer, take Eager Advance. It's better than the universal one because you get that war counter. Cunning Brutality. This is such a good card to pair with Brutal Cunning because it does work after the charge action. So play this after a friendly fighter's attack action, push them up to 3 hexes. With Brutal Cunning, it works obviously because it's not a charge action. You do the move, you do the attack, and then you can either shove that person into the opponent even more, or pull them back to a more defensive position. So my first restricted cards, I went with Frenzied Search. Instead of Unnatural Truce, I'm not giving the person a card draw for themselves. I'm drawing 3 power cards. That's so much better. It is a lot better than Unnatural Truce. I did have Unnatural Truce in here. In fact, when I first kind of played these guys, I had all 3 of the card draws, and it was silly and a bit of a waste of card space. So, but I stuck with Frenzied Search because of the 3 cards and not giving the opponent a draw. Glorious Triumph. This is the card that goes well with Now What and Hidden Purpose. So it's a reaction. If I kill somebody and I have this card, I play this card, I am technically holding 1 or more objectives than what I physically hold. So then I only need to physically hold 1 objective to score those cards. It's really good, and I think a lot of people are going to be playing this card if you're objective grabbing, particularly if we're in a position where objective flipping and objective destruction is going to be happening when people are trying to feed the Beastgrave for that kind of big money scoring objective, and this cancels that out a little bit. It's a really good card. So I think you're going to see a lot of people playing this. Quick search, again, I've got to the end, I've got Digging Deep. It makes sense to have this card. Spectral Wings, just to give that extra bit of sort of poke to one of my orcs when required. They do only move 3, they move 4 inspired, so potentially moving up to 6 is quite scary, really. So I've kind of held this card until the end, really, until the end of the game. So if I've only got one orc left and they think they're far enough away to not have to deal with him, I can send him in there quite comfortably. So any kind of extra move, I think, for these guys would be a Gambit slot well spent. And then moving on to the upgrades. Great strength, it's just simple really, just to kind of get a bit more punch through. I can't one-shot a kind of like a boss unless my guys are inspired and I'm spending tokens. So that great strength is there as a kind of just as a simple buff, really. Blazing Soul. So Blazing Soul is you inspire somebody, they then can't be uninspired. If this is in my opening hand and nobody is inspired and I've just scored a glory, I'm inspiring someone, because it can be quite hard to get those wild tokens going. You are dependent on how your cards are coming out. So I think this is a nice and well used restricted slot. Spirit Bond. I'm still a little bit undecided on this one because it doesn't really add anything defensively. I'm only chucking 1 defense dice. So how often is that going to save me, if that makes sense, you know? So it is strictly there for the offensive buffs, as having an extra side on the dice to helps you kind of smash damage through, I think is quite essential for the Krushas. Brute Charge, rolls of hammers and swords are successes for this fighter's range 1 attack actions made as part of a charge. I was undecided about having this in here, but in my last few games, this has pretty much won me the game. That the charge made while having this card has been what's kind of tipped the game in my favour. So I don't really have any reason to take it out, if that makes sense, because it has been a good card for me. That would be like subbing an inform player and bringing back in an injured one just because the injured one played more before. So I'm not a fan of that type of thing, and it angers me when it happens at Tottenham. But yeah, this card has come up trumps for me in the last couple of games. So I'm going to keep it in and kind of keep an eye on it and see if it's still worth having in the future. Inured to pain. Anything that whittles down the damage dealt to the lads is great. This pairs really nicely with the mandibles. So if someone attacks you and only does 1 damage, you then get to attack them back, and the damage and the attack is successful, and you get that damage. Like it's it's lovely. Vengeful Glare. This is another one that I'm not too sure about, but this is when after an attack action that targets this fighter, place 1 war counter on this fighter's fighter card. It's a reaction, so I think it does interrupt certain things. Me and a chap whose name I didn't catch, so apologies, really rude of me, one of the Aussie guys on Battle, we played it that reaction interrupted, like combo, for example. So we may have been playing that wrong. If we were playing that wrong, apologies. But that could be stronger than what it seems if that is the case. And then all the Urgot cards, claws, getting snare really strong in this day and age, where a lot of people tend to play high agility warbands for defence. Mandibles of the Urgrub, that's really underrated. It's really good on the orcs. It is really good on the orcs. And then Sting of the Urgrub, just giving yourself an extra bit of damage just to kind of help smash it through. And then the final upgrade is Keen Chopper. This is the I've not used it. Is cleave really necessary in this day and age? I think this is the one that may come out in the future. I mean, the only thing I have used this for is ditching it for Frenzied Search. I mean, it's quite situational. It's just for the boss as well. So, I don't know. It could come out, but I know the minute I take it out, my first 3 games in a tournament will be against like Fiends, Morgok, and Stormcast. So, there is a place for it, but it's not one that I will see getting played much, if that makes sense. But that's my deck. Let me know what you think. So from my kind of opinion, I think the pros to it are it's easy to play. There's not too many like reactions that you've got to remember. So like, I've been playing Godsworn all summer. I play Lady Harry's quite a lot, and there's lots of reactions, lots of combos that you need to play. This is quite straightforward. You just Space Invaders your way up the board pretty much. Just a slow wave of orcs. Snaffle up an objective when you can. Kill what you can when you can. The kind of disadvantages to it. It is dependent on the card draw. I know I've got Frenzied Search and Quick Search to help out with that, but if I don't have those cards in there that can help me with like a free attack or help me with sort of getting WAR tokens, round 1 is going to be very low scoring. Round 2 is going to be a bit problematic, and then I need to do all the work in round 3 to try and catch up. So it's a slow scoring deck. Is a total glory score of 16 enough in this day and age? Particularly where there is a high chance of having to mulligan if I get the Avatar and no surges in my opening hand. I'm probably going to ditch it. I have won games where I've had to do that, but that's just down to the kind of murder, kill of the Krushas. But I like it. I like the feel of it. It feels orky, which is good. I like my decks to have a flavour to them of the kind of warband that you're playing. So let me know what you think in the comments. What changes would you make? How are you playing the orcs? What have you found that's worked? What have you found that hasn't worked with them? Lots of people are going to be playing them over the next few days. I'm really looking forward to hearing what everyone kind of thinks now we've physically got their hands on them. I've got 3 decks going up this week. So I'm going to have a Coven one probably on Wednesday, fingers crossed. And then on Friday, keep an eye out for a rather good Gits deck that we've put together. So keep an eye out for those. Give us a sub if you haven't, and be one of the first guys to see it. And in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers.